Thank you, Alex. My name is Erez Lirov. I'm one of the partners and in charge of the technology at Vericle. I just realized that the title of this makes it seem like we're going to do some ab workouts. We are not. We're going to go through the. We're going to go through the core part of the Vericle EHR and billing platform, so you guys have a little bit better understanding of how it functions and some of the thought behind it, and how to do very common things like logging in and looking at workflows and things like that. That'll give you a basic understanding of the platform. And then after that, we've scheduled some sessions down the road for very specific role-based training, like documentation and scheduling and billing and those kinds of things. So the main topics we're going to go through today are how to log in, doing password resets, what is multi-factor auth, why is it good, and how do you do it. There's some basics around security. Looking at the homepage, what's there, and most importantly, getting help, looking at the help pages, understanding how they work, and how to work with our help desk and training team to get more focused help on things that you need done. We have a very different help model than most software companies. We think it's much better, but you won't think it's much better right away. It does take some time to get accustomed to it, but I guarantee you within a few months, you'll be wondering why other companies don't work this way. Platform items, some thoughts around what is the production system versus what is beta and legacy and how that all works together. Why we have different app servers and what that does for you when you're using the system and there's some sort of problem and you need to continue doing what you're doing. So all that we'll go over. And then the basics of workflow. What is a task? How that can help you in managing your workday and making sure that basically nothing slips through the cracks in the practice. So just a couple things about security. When you first go into the system, hang on a second, let's go this way. There'll be a login page. Let me just bring it up this way so it's easier to see what it looks like. Basically has a login, a password, and an office code. You'll get all that information when your account is set up. Make sure that the office code, everything here is case sensitive. So just in case you're having trouble logging on, make sure that you're putting in the right case of everything. And the office code exactly the way it is. There shouldn't be any spaces anywhere. So just keep that in mind. You can save the login info, just to log in an office onto your own computer if you're the only person using that computer, and it'll just make you type in your password each time to get in. Passwords should be long enough and random enough that people can't guess them. HIPAA disallows sharing logins. Remember, this is a web-based system, which means that anybody can access this page, and so if they can guess your combination of login, password, and office, then they basically have access to everything in your practice that you have access to. So for that reason, you want to pick a very, very strong password. As you pick your password, the system will tell you whether it's strong or weak. So don't pick weak passwords. Don't write them down anywhere. We like to use a password management system called LastPass. Alex, we can talk about that later, but that's very helpful. But in any case, make sure your password is strong. That's not enough these days because you can have all kinds of password cracking systems out there. And so what we also highly recommend is that you use a two-factor authentication. So to get there, once you're logged into the system, you can go to configuration, my profile, change password, two-factor authentication, and you can set up two-factor authentication, generate an authentication key, scan that into your phone. There's a program that you can download called Authy that will let you scan this in, and then you validate it.
Sorry
Yep.
to interrupt. You have about a 5 to 10 second delay for everyone watching on YouTube, just so you know, and try not to go too quickly then with the screens.
Okay. Oh yeah. Sorry about that. Okay. So yeah, you can set it up, and then this way, in order to log in every 30 days, it'll require you to enter a rotating 6-digit code from your phone. So that way, it really cuts down on the ability of anybody to hack into your account. And because of HIPAA and security and all that stuff, it's really, really important to keep the stuff safe. So more details about that down the road in further training, but I just wanted to give you an idea of how the login system works and the capabilities that we have around really securing the system and making sure that no one can get access to it. Once you're in the system, let's just, oh yeah, one other word about email addresses. Make sure that everyone has a separate email address that's linked to their account, because that'll allow you to reset passwords through the email. Whereas if you share email accounts on different logins, then you can't do that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how the system is organized navigation-wise, and we'll start there. The system has some welcome info on the top, gives you current time. If you see that the time is wrong, this is actually really important. Make sure that that gets corrected. That is a reflection of both your computer's time and the time zone. So sometimes computers are set up with wrong time zones or wrong times, and the system is very sensitive about that. So that's very important. Just double check that the time is right, at least the first time you log in. There's a log out button. When you're done with your session, make sure you log out. That's super important. There's a dashboard for those users that have access to financial information. It'll show you things like total collections, month to date, total outstanding AR, total outstanding number of tickets that are assigned. We'll talk about tickets and tasks later. Claims outstanding, and then percentages of AR beyond 30, 60, and 120 days. And then interspersed throughout the system, you're going to see these question mark icons, which link directly to a help page that has to do with whatever it is that you're looking at. So context-sensitive help, it's all over the place. It's very, very heavily updated all the time. We're always looking at this stuff and trying to make it better. There's a lot of screenshots, and there are a lot of embedded videos that are really helpful. So we really recommend that once you get access to the system, if there's any part of the system that you're curious about learning more, just click into these little help icons and go through them, watch the videos. They're extremely helpful. Like, for example, the way that the navigation system works here, I'm going to just start from a clear or from a brand new login just so that it's easier to see. So normally you would come into the system like this. You have a menuing system with the most common options on the left and progressively less used options towards the right. Each menu breaks down into submenus as well. So sometimes for reports, we have hundreds of reports, or dozens of reports, I guess. So there's a lot of options here, whereas Workbench is a much smaller menu. When you select an item from the menu, what the system does is it actually puts in a tab into your tab bar. So that means that if I select two options from the menu, for example, Workbench Tasks and Search Patients, I'm going to end up with two tabs here. And the reason for that is it makes it much easier to do multiple things at the same time. When I switch between these tabs, information that I started to enter is actually kept between those tabs. So if I switch back and forth, you can see that I'm not losing information in these different windows. So again, the way that the navigation works is if I want to get to a particular part of the system, I'll just click on that icon or that selection. That'll open up that tab. I'll be in that tab, but then if I wanted to do some other thing in the system, Search Patients, that'll open up another tab, and I can easily go back and forth between the different things that I was trying to do. So this is how the navigation system works. There are some more complicated functions. Like for example, there's a feature called tab sets, where I can have the system remember for me my most common tabs, name it something like my daily tab list or my morning tab list or something like that. And then this way, instead of searching for the items that I need every morning, I could just go over here and grab whatever my end of day reports or whatever, and it'll line up all my tasks right one after the other. The other very important part of this is the help menu. So you have context-sensitive help, which are these little question marks over here that you can click in, and it'll show you the help page on that function that you're looking at, including embedded videos and things like that. This is extremely useful. There's also other functions in the help menu that are very useful as well, and we'll go into those in a little bit later. Okay, actually, we're going to go into it right now. The next section is help and how we are set up to deal with help requests and training and things like that. So I don't know if you guys had this experience, but in almost every software product that we've used on our end, we also use lots and lots of software products. When we have a question or a problem, we typically will call up the software company and we'll navigate through 15 different IVRs or extensions and so forth, try to find the right one. Invariably, we'll end up in the wrong department, and we'll be talking to someone who doesn't really understand our problem and is not ready to help us because they were in the middle of helping some other company and they just picked up our call, or we'll just be waiting on hold for half an hour, or whatever it is, until we finally get somebody that's ready to help us. And so what you have here is two people, the help desk person and the end user, you guys, on the phone waiting for each other and just wasting a ton of time. Turns out that in most cases, if you're trying to accomplish something and you need help with that, it really makes more sense to just put that request into some queue somewhere and just get a call back, or even just a written response. Oh, all you have to do is click over here. The reason that works so much better is because in 99% of the cases, when you run into a problem or an issue or trying to accomplish something, you can do other things while you're waiting for that first problem or first issue to get resolved. And so it's much easier to just write down, and in the beginning it's a little bit of an adjustment, but you just write down your question or what it is that you need help with, send it over to us, and then this way we can make sure that we understand the problem, it's routed to the right department, we do a little research, we find out exactly what the right response is, and then we'll either call you back when you're ready for us to call back, or we'll just write in the response, and then you can continue doing whatever you need to do and not have to wait for us while we figure out our end and where it has to go. So to get help is actually really simple. Go to help, open help, request task. So basically we're saying that you're opening a task to us to get help, and maybe the problem, try to describe the problem as clearly as possible. You know, sometimes we get tickets that say something like need help now or system doesn't work or something like that. Try to make it as descriptive as possible right away, because that makes it really easy for us to figure out the severity of the problem, how urgent it is, and more importantly, exactly which department or which sub-department needs to go to, so you can get the right help as quickly as possible. So maybe I write something like, how do I look up a patient account in the scheduler? If this is something that's related to one particular patient, like for example, let's say instead of that, let's say I had something like getting system error, cannot find patient when pulling up this patient. it would be really helpful if we specified which patient that was. So there's a little look up there, find Donald Smith, and then this is a pretty good description of the problem, so I probably don't need to add additional details, but you know, it might be helpful actually to say exactly what I did. So opened up schedule, entered last name in the left side. There. So something like this. This is very descriptive. It's very helpful. We get this ticket. We can usually react to it within 30 minutes, an hour tops, but we get you the right answer without you having to wait on hold and wait for someone to, you know, transfer between 15 different departments. So once you have this in, just hit send. Just decide quickly whether it's a billing issue, a help desk, or a system-related issue, or more of an admin issue. It's usually going to be a system issue or a billing issue. Just choose between one of those. And then once you hit that, that'll go right into our system, and our help desk will react to it and try to fix it for you. You might want to add in when it would be good to call you. You know, call any time or call between 2 to 5. Oh, what happened? Okay. Sorry about that. So, and then once you have that in there, we'll respond and get you the information. All right. The next question is, well, how do we respond to you? When you create this task, what happens is the task goes into a task list on our end, which shows up on a task workbench. So it might be helpful actually to go into the workflow aspect of the system and talk about what a task is and how tasks flow within the system to different roles, and then how people see responses and all of that. So let's go over that. So tasks solve a very particular type of problem, which is that the complexity in managing offices is growing every single year. And when you have multiple locations, it really gets complicated. You have all kinds of government regulations like HIPAA and ONC and so forth that make it even more important to be compliant and more difficult. And it's very hard to find accountability within practices sometimes, because everybody has to be constantly thinking about everything else. And as soon as you lose one thing or one item doesn't get done, then that could have a cascading effect where suddenly there's problems everywhere because of that one thing. And it's very easy to mistake that kind of an issue for either a software bug or a personnel problem. Say, oh, well, you know, Kathy never does this thing. It turns out that we never had a way to deliver those tasks to Kathy, so Kathy didn't even know that she needed to do whatever it was that needed to happen that was so important. So all of this stuff has a huge effect on the practice in terms of compliance, cash flow, time management, all those things. It's very difficult to solve this because there are a lot of tasks and they're constantly getting created and they constantly have to be managed. It's very, very difficult to memory manage those tasks. Just some quick calculations, you're talking about thousands and thousands of tasks per month for a typical practice. Some tasks have multiple steps. You're not always able to complete a task in one shot. And so you end up having to remember to follow up on that task later. And so that makes it difficult. And so we built a task management system within Vericle to make it much, much more doable. I'm not going to say easier, I'm just going to say to make it actually doable to carry out these things on a daily basis and keep track of what needs to get done. So we have a concept of a task, which is one thing that needs to get done. It has one requester, which is the person who needs the task done. and one owner who is the person who is going to do that task. If a task needs to be done by several people, then it needs to be unassigned, in other words, assigned to a group, until someone takes over. And once someone takes that task, they own that task, and they're gonna complete whatever they can on it until they're gonna reassign it to someone else. There's no capability to have multiple people assigned to one task, because then there's always confusion on who is gonna actually do the next step. Typically, if there's a task that has multiple parts or multiple participants, that means the task really is multiple tasks. And so we should just create multiple tasks to begin with and make sure that they're assigned the right way. We do this using a concept called a checklist. And I'll show you guys checklist later on. But basically, that allows us to define a set of tasks that always get opened together to multiple users or multiple departments. Tasks can be active or inactive. Active means that someone needs to take action on this task right away. So when you first open a task, by default, it's an active task. It's something that needs to be completed pretty much now. But once you take an action on the task, it's very possible that that task needs to wait for something to happen before the next step can occur. Like, for example, let's say I'm calling an insurance company and I'm following up on a particular account, and the insurance says, oh, give us 24 hours to research this and call back. It's really important that that task goes away for 24 hours and then comes back to me 24 hours later. The reason is because when I look at my task list, every hour or periodically during the day, I want to make sure that the task list is focused on only things that I can actually get done. Otherwise, if it's all cluttered up with tasks that I need to follow up on tomorrow, a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, I constantly have to scan through the same set of tasks and deal with things that, or handle or touch things that should not be looked at yet. And that makes things very, very frustrating and inefficient. So making the task list active and making sure that tasks have a proper follow-up date so that they don't appear until that follow-up date, that's one of the critical steps here to make sure that you're working very, very efficiently. Tasks also are tracked constantly, and we know we can see from a very high level things like productivity or backlogs or bottlenecks. So we can look at the process from a higher level and figure out how to make your lives easier. If we notice that a particular type of task is taking way too long, or we're constantly dealing with some part of task that's becoming a bottleneck, well, we can look at the process and see, is there any easier way to do what we need to do without doing that task? Or is there a different way to do that task so it's easier to do? And that's really how we get productivity gains across the enterprise. You have to measure first, and then you can analyze and figure out what to do. All this only happens if you're tracking things using tasks. If everything is sort of anecdotal, like, oh yeah, I know I have to do these 5 things every day, then it's very, very hard to measure that and do anything to improve that. This is a graphic of the typical task life cycle. This is what happens to most tasks. They get open to an unassigned owner to a specific role, like let's say front desk. Maybe the ticket says that this patient has no future scheduled appointments, and so the task is to schedule future appointments for this patient. So initially it goes unassigned. At some point, someone from the front desk will grab that task and say, oh, Jody Smith needs more future appointments. Let me call her up and see if she can come in. So they'll take ownership. They'll assign themselves to the task. That task will appear on their workbench. It'll appear right here as a task. Let me create a test task here. Oops. Just so there's something for us to look at. Here's a typical way that a new task appears. There's a task number, there's a start date, a due date, an updated date. The title of the task should be as descriptive as possible, because when you look at your task list, you want to easily be able to see what's next? What can I do really quickly right now? And that's much easier to do if the titles are very descriptive. We talked about the owner, the requester. Priority is an important thing. Obviously, the more urgent the task, the higher the priority you want to put on there. Sometimes it's hard to prioritize things right away, but try to make a good guess as to whether the priority is low, normal, high, or critical. And then the status, that tells us what status the ticket or the task is in. So initially, the task is open, unassigned. It becomes assigned and active, so it appears right on my workbench, and I can click on it and look at the notes. And then when I make some sort of movement on it, and I'm ready to either take the next action by reassigning the task to someone else or by putting in a follow-up date, I can do that by taking an action over here. So let's say I called the insurance company and they said, call us back in 24 hours. I'll put in a note, spoke with Lisa, said to call back in 24 hours. Here's a reference number, whatever. And take action, set follow-up date. We'll do 1 day, save, and and that task will disappear from my task list until the next day, when it'll automatically pop right back in there so I can deal with it. You can also look up tasks by their numbers, or if you go to My Bench, there's a list of all of your tasks that you've looked at recently, and so you can easily just skip right into the task to bring it up. So this just helps you to manage your workflow and make sure that we're all staying on top of tasks. It's the same mechanism that allows you to interact with us really efficiently. So when I open up a ticket to the help desk, getting error, trying to open patient account. Let's say I put in the patient over here, send help desk ticket. It's going to ask me if I want to upload a file or submit another. I can just say no thanks to be done with it. And then from here, if I go to My Bench, I'm seeing the tickets that are assigned to me. If I switch this over to Ode, then what's happening is I'm looking at the tickets that or the tasks that I've opened to other people where I'm the requester. And so, for example, the latest ticket that I opened here was getting error trying to open patient account. I can see exactly what's happening to it. So this is a really important concept. When you open us a ticket asking for help or looking for answers or whatever, when we respond to you, that task will come back on your workbench. But if you haven't seen a response yet on your workbench and you're just looking for status, you want to see what happened to that task, you can just go into the Ode bench and you can follow up on the task and you can see exactly where it is. All this information, by the way, is linked into this this little help icon. Actually, this help icon is for the Ticket Manager console, which I'll show you guys in a second. But we do have videos on this. Okay, going through the other parts of the tasks. So the notes are where you put in information, where we would respond to you as well. So note here. From here, if I take action, and I can either respond to the person who I'm communicating with. I can just notate to myself and just keep the ticket where it is, but just add the note in there. Or I could take other actions, like if I set the ticket to pending, then that means that I'm done working on it. And so that's how we respond back to you guys when you have issues that you need taken care of. Close, discard, reassign. If you want to take ownership of a ticket, you could do that in one shot. I'm going to talk just a couple seconds about rating tickets. So there's this option here to rate a ticket, which gives you this handy thumbs up, thumbs down thing. This is really helpful when you're interacting with us, and then down the road when you interact with each other as well, but especially when interacting with us, you want to rate our tickets as soon as you're done with the interaction. Doing that really helps us to pinpoint where our team is needs improvement or can get better. No one's going to get in trouble if you rate somebody low. It's just a way for us to know that something is not going exactly the way that it should. It's an early warning system, and it lets us zero in on a problem. You don't necessarily need to low rate ticket if you didn't get the answer you wanted. You can always just clarify, actually what I meant was, or what I needed was, or whatever, and just reply back to whoever it is that you're communicating with. But if you feel frustration, if you feel that they're not understanding you, or something else is going on, then always feel free to rate the ticket, and that allows us to swoop in and figure out what's going on and just resolve it more quickly if there's a problem like that. Okay, so to review, you can open tickets to us through this open help request task. Describe the problem as completely as possible, attach a patient if it's applicable. That's really helpful. Send the ticket in, categorize it as either a billing or a system issue. And then when we respond to you, the ticket will come back on your workbench. It'll show up green, showing that we've responded, and you can just click into it and you can see the response in the notes. If you want a call or something like that, just feel free to give them contact info, time that they should call you, and just write that in, take action, respond, and that'll go right back to whoever it was that sent you the ticket, and they'll call you or set up a screen share. A lot of times it's much easier to show you how to do things using screen sharing. So oftentimes they'll suggest that. So you'll ask a question, they'll say, okay, well, when can we do a screen share? Because I could show it to you more easily. All right, so that is the workflow system. I'm going to go through the task manager console to give you guys an idea of what tasks look like from a little bit higher level. So this is more of a day-to-day interaction with tasks where you're creating tasks and you're working with tasks, monitoring your tasks, and making progress on them. So this is what we call the workbench, right? Workbench tasks. If we go to Reports, Workflow, Task Manager Console, this gives us a little bit higher level view of our tasks. So if I go to a specific role, like let's say front office, and hit go, I can see all the tasks that are currently assigned to the front desk role, and I can click in and get the details of those tasks to the right. Now this area here is the same workbench that we looked at before, but the data that we're looking at, the tasks that we're looking at, is the subset of tasks that belong on that are coming from the left side. So in this case, it's the task where test CA2 is the owner. Over here, it's the unassigned tasks. And from here, you still have the same options over here to document the tasks. You can look at the log, the history of the task, what happened to it. Long descriptions, you could put in the body. You can paste screenshots in here, or you can upload attachments. The other more advanced functions we can look at down the road, but that should be a good basis for interaction. Okay, so that is the Task Manager console. Opening a task. Okay. Okay. All right. Let's talk a little bit about the platform itself. there's some basic troubleshooting things in case something doesn't work right away. There's some basic things that you can do on your side to just try to work around the problem, and whatever solution you end up with, it's helpful to let us know, because that can help us track down the problem and fix it much more quickly. So we run 3 different application platforms on our end simultaneously that all talk and interact with the same data set. This is something that's fairly unique. When you use your Windows box or your iPhone or whatever, you're running one version of the software at a time. Like, you can only install one version of Microsoft Word. But the problem with that is every once in a while you'll upgrade to a new version because you want some new feature, and it breaks some other feature. So now you're stuck in this place where you could try to undo the update, if that's even a possibility, and go back to the old version. Sometimes it's not even a possibility. So you can use the old feature, but then you lose the new feature. Or you can stick it out and try to use the new version and hope that they'll fix the bug in the old one. But what happens if it's a critical feature that you really, really, really needed? Now you're kind of stuck. And so we recognize that that's a huge problem. And for that reason, we always give you an option of from 3 different versions at the same time that all work on the same data set. So you can use all 3 versions simultaneously in case you need to. Now, 99% of the time, you'll be in production, you'll log in, and just like when you're using your iPhone or your Android phone or your Microsoft Word or whatever, it does what it needs to do, and you don't need to worry about any of this stuff. Production is very nice because there's 3 separate application servers on our end. There's a lot higher stability. The software doesn't get released very quickly because the release cycle is somewhere between 3 to 6 months. So generally, you're going to be much happier being in production. And so if you go to versions here and you go to production, that is how it looks. However, you might run into a problem in production, some sort of bug or some sort of issue. And if that happens, then there are 2 ways to quickly try to solve your problem on your own before you involve support and so on, just so you can keep doing what you're doing. Let us know, obviously, if there's a problem, but just so that you can continue doing your tasks. So the first possibility is that we already know that there's a problem and we fixed it, but we just haven't released the fix yet because we wanted to test it out thoroughly and make sure it doesn't break anything else. That's a very common thing. So to test out whether that's the case, you can switch over to our experimental beta version. If you do that, you're going to get a little warning on the top that says you're in beta, and you can then try out. Just undo that. Okay, so it'll say you're in beta. It'll make the top of the screen a little red, and whatever it was that you were having a problem with, you can try to do that here in beta. And if you're successful, then that change has taken effect across all of our platforms. So when you do anything in beta, you're still on your production database and you're still making changes live, just like anything else. It's not a test system or anything like that. It's a live system. But it just gives you an option to get through what it was that you needed to do in case that, yeah, we already recognized the problem and we fixed it. Remember, there's thousands and thousands of users on the same platform. So chances are if you're running into a problem, someone else already ran into it. They already opened us a ticket. We probably already took care of it. Just we're doing final testing on it. And so in a lot of cases, if you go on beta, you'll see that the problem is resolved, and you can just use beta for that, but use production for everything else. You can keep 2 tabs open, by the way. So if you wanted to run beta just for that one function, but you wanted to use production for anything else, which is a very smart idea, you can just have 2 browser tabs open, just like this. So here I am in production, happily doing whatever it is that I wanted to do. And at the same time, for whatever the function wasn't working for me on production, I can just hit beta and use that. If you find out that this is the case, that you're doing something in production that doesn't work, but it does work on beta, do let us know. Open a ticket anyway. Be specific. Say, this is what I'm doing. It doesn't work on production, but it does work on beta. It just allows us to know that there's yet another person that's experiencing the same thing that we fixed, and so we can then make it a higher priority, release that item. So that's always a good thing. You might find out, on the other hand, that the thing is still broken in beta, and that's also a very, very good thing to tell us, because that tells us that whatever the problem was, we didn't fix it in beta, and so we should really get cracking on that and make sure that we get the fixed out and push it out. So that's always very, very helpful. The other version that we have is the legacy version, the old version. Every once in a while, we'll release something that contains a bug, and it'll go through all our beta testing, and that bug will still be there for some reason. Nobody caught it, and so it'll make its way to production after three months or whatever, and then you'll run into that problem. And if that happens, just to get through that problem again, you can go to legacy, see if that works. If it works, great, use legacy just for that one thing. Open us a ticket and say, hey, this doesn't work under production, but it does work in legacy, so can you fix it in production? And we'll get right on that and make sure that that is corrected. If a problem doesn't work under all three, then there's no workaround. You can't do that particular thing until we fix the problem. So let us know. Just open a ticket, say, I tried all three, nothing works, I'm getting the same problem. What do I need to do? And we will do our best to get you a workaround as quickly as we can, and then try to fix the problem as soon as we can figure out what it is and get the code in place. Okay, so that is multi-versioning. Okay. And that basically covers all the aspects, the core training, the common concepts behind the platform. So I think at this point,